Good afternoon. My name is Monica Dean. I'm the Director of Housing here at LISC New York City, and I manage our Developers of Color training program. On behalf of our Executive Director, Valerie White, I would like to welcome you to this afternoon's information session. Valerie regrets that she could not be present with us this afternoon as she is representing LISC New York City at a conference. Next slide. So let me begin by just briefly sharing a little bit of background information about LISC New York City, which is a national nonprofit community development financial institution that equips underinvested communities with the capital strategy and technical know-how to become places where low and moderate income people can really thrive. LISC New York City, LISC flagship New York City office was created in 1980. So for the past 40 years, we've been supporting local partners whose services and programs are specifically geared towards helping to create a more equitable, inclusive, and sustainable New York City. And here at LISC New York City, we believe that the time has now come to forge a future for New York City that eradicates the racial wealth gap for good, protects affordable housing for low and moderate income New Yorkers, and builds pathways of meaningful economic opportunity for all. At LISC, we have three pillars that make up our platform here at New York City, and they are backed by intention and strategy that helps to inform all of our programmatic and lending efforts at LISC New York City. And so they are radical healing, which is really geared towards examining and addressing underlying assumptions that perpetuate bias and bigotry through our legislative and public policy advocacy work and our engagement with our cultural institutions. Our second pillar consists of inclusive economic transformation, which we prioritize targeted investments in public infrastructure, human talent, innovation, diverse small businesses, and impactful community organizations. And our third pillar is sustainable wealth generation, where we really look at ways to explore and implement programs that support entrepreneurship, ownership, career ladders, and financial mobility and wealth building in communities of color in New York City. Next slide. Our challenge, and I want to share with you this quote from our dynamic and amazing leader, Executive Director Valerie White, where, she says, for too long, however, minority-owned firms trying to break into the industry have been boxed out. Structural barriers have prevented minority entrepreneurs from accessing capital and contract pipelines. The professional networks often necessary to get started in the industry are frequently out of reach. And so at LISC New York City, we are building out, a suite of programs that will allow us to help transform BIPOC-owned firms in real estate into thriving, sustainable businesses that contribute to New York City's overall economic recovery. And some examples of our programs include, but are not limited to, the Marketing Agent Training Program and our Developers of Color Training Program, which you will learn more about here today. Next slide. And it's my distinct pleasure to introduce to you all Francilia Wilkins Rahim, the CEO of RF Wilkins Consultants, who's working very closely with LISC New York City for managing and overseeing our Developers of Color program. RF Wilkins Consultants was founded in 2001 and it's based in Jamaica, Queens. They are a certified minority and women-owned business within New York City, New York State, and also the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. And RF Wilkins Consultants have successfully developed and expanded many critical projects and programs on behalf of governments and municipalities, nonprofit organizations, as well as private firms. And just to note some of their three notable related experiences and projects that they're working on right now, and include, again, but are not limited to, the JFK redevelopment airport project, where they are providing oversight and community outreach and stakeholder engagement and technical assistance for this project. The UMES Local Developer Loan Fund is an innovation advisory services, project design and implementation, market research, business analysis, commercialization, press and public relations are the services they provide for that project. And the Emerging Loan Developer Fund is an innovation advisory services, very similar, project design, implementation, research, business analysis. And so we've had the distinct pleasure of working with RF Wilkins Consultants and her team over the years, and we are very excited that they will be joining us and working with us on the second cohort for LISC New York City's Developers of Color Training Program. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Francilia to walk us through the reason why we are here today. And again, I want to welcome and thank all of you for joining us this afternoon. And if you have questions during the presentation, please put them in the Q&A, and we're going to try to get to all of the questions. Just start writing your questions as they come up throughout the presentation. And again, we will address all the questions, and feel free to use the chat as well. Francilia, I'm turning it over to you.
Excellent, Monica. Thank you so much. First of all, community, it is so exciting to be with you all today. As the CEO of RF Wilkins Consultants, it is my absolute pleasure to partner with LISC New York City in round 2 of the Developers of Color program. I will tell you this initiative is innovative. It is one of a kind in its market. We've had so many successes round 2, and I encourage all of you on this call, especially those developers, those BIPOC and diverse developers, to join this second cohort that will be even more dynamic than our first pilot. And so today I'm going to be here to give you all the information and details about this initiative. But then also I want to hear from you. Monica mentioned putting your questions in the Q&A. Please add your questions to the Q&A. We will get to them, but I really want to hear from you, hear your questions. Right now, the application is open. So can I get the next slide, please? All right, so let's back up a little bit and tell you how this program came to fruition. So LISC came with the idea, the concept, the understanding that there is a gap in the market for minority developers. I'll tell you, in New York City, we saw that the mass of development happening in this mega city, we saw less than 1% of them going to minority real estate developers, 1% of these projects. And we said, there has to be a twofold way, a multifold way to ensure that minority real estate developers are getting to truly participate. And when I say truly participate, we wanted to understand what other areas, what are the things that are gaps? How can we build a program that was no longer just a technical assistance-based initiative or technical assistance program, but an initiative that allowed developers to drive and scale their projects forward? And we have definitely hit that, and the proof in the pudding has been our first cohort. So RF Wilkins did an initial survey in round 1, really looking at what was happening in the market, right? And we came up with a few findings. We spoke to many developers of color of all different scales. We spoke to the general industry. We spoke to everyone throughout the market, from government folk to private folk, and we saw a few things. So we understood that developers of color are not monolithic, and that is across every scale of business. We are not monolithic. We need different things. We need to participate in different ways. And there are bigger developers, there are smaller developers, there are mid-sized developers. How can we create an opportunity for us to scale? We also saw that there are biases, real-time biases, whether they're structural barriers, financial barriers in the market that are preventing us from participating. And we said, we want to ensure that as we develop this Developers of Color cohort, that we are impacting those barriers real time and becoming a synergistic partner with the developers participating in this cohort to ensure that these roadblocks in the market can be broken down. We talked about financing and access. We saw that not only are minority developers having limited capital access, But there's also fiscal structures that are impacting our partnership and participation. And then on the technical assistance side, from back office support to, just setting up all the back office pieces to thriving and having additional market support, there needed to be support accessing and the market and building a back office. Next slide, please. So what did we do? We developed this Developers of Color program. And the whole goal of this initiative is to help to partner to, assist MBE developers expand their capacity and their project access. We said that we would do this by allowing folks to be more competitive so we can participate more as the market continues to scale in New York. So how are we doing that? The Developers of Color program, as a participant, you will be able to not only enhance your network and get connected to the folk in the market that you're like, wow, I wish I had their phone number, their email, I wish I could talk to them. You will get to do that in this program. You're going to get access to capital. We end this initiative with a Shark Tank-like pitch conversation and conference. Last year, of our 12 developer cohorts, 10 developers were connected to capital through this initiative. And then of course they have to work with their, shark to make sure that the deal fits and move it forward. But then also build your capacity, whether you're in the affordable housing space, whether you're in the, just general market space, you will have an opportunity to build your capacity through this program in your portfolio. Next slide, please. So there is a video here that I'm going to have us show in a second. But with cohort 1, we had a very good slew of outcomes. We had 12, as I mentioned, diverse developers who were participating in the inaugural cohort. Of those folk, the program included 4 modules, 3 workshops, over 40 hours of training. Not only did developers get training, but they were connected one-on-one to coaches. And the coaches helped them to, 1, prep for the pitch competition, but also to scale and ready themselves for the other deals they're doing in their market. We had participants able to speed network with folk across the market. And most importantly, we had a plethora of industry conversations that were also dynamic and effective. Our cohort members left there with saying a bunch of great things. Lend-Lease was one of the coaches, and Lend-Lease coachee said, they committed not only to coaching me and helping me with, the financial side of my project, but they also committed to helping me after the program. So your mentor relationships last. And how great would it be to go from somebody being your coach? I'm sorry, I'm saying mentor relationship because it ends up being like that, but it's actually a coaching relationship. I want to make that clear. But how great would it be to get from somebody to be a coach to then helping you after the program and then hopefully doing business with them? TrueFund was one of our sharks. And one of the participants said that TrueFund not only committed to funding their program during their pitch, but after reached out to them immediately to make sure the model would fit, to make sure they had everything they needed to access capital, and they moved quickly. Don Peoples and Meredith Marshalls, they also had a fresh perspective, and someone said inform them about the housing rate and the market and how to engage it. Can I get the next slide, please? So the program in this 2022 summer cohort is a 6-week-long instructional program. It has in-person networking events. We're going to have one-on-one coaching. I mentioned before, we're going to have coaching by experienced real estate developers. I think the coaching is something so critical because, again, you want to build relationships with your coach. You want to, in many, many cases, your coach is doing business in the market. In many, many cases, they're looking for diverse partners. So your coach is so important in this relationship because not only could it lend to you having, initial, information and details to scale, but also financing partnership support, hopefully, if you build relationships in the future, opening that kind of doorway for potential partnership. We are connecting with a plethora of the industries everyone from EDC to HVD, and name it, that does housing in New York City as a partner in this program. And then we're also giving you access to equity capital with our Shark Tank-like investor pitch competition that happens at the conclusion of this pilot. So you will have an opportunity to pitch yourself, pitch your deal, and then ensure, hopefully, if your pitch is great enough and prep, that you get some commitments from sharks. And the sharks are committing to saying, look, we're going to take your deal forward. We want to invest in it. We're going to work with you to make sure this is feasible. Next slide, please. So here's some quick eligibility requirements. Again, as I mentioned, the application is up on LISC's website. We encourage all of you to go and complete the application. The application will be closing within a week. So we want to ensure that you complete the application as soon as possible. This is going to be a very, very, aggressive cohort of folk, but we're so excited for it. And we're asking you to submit. To submit and be eligible, you should be located in the greater New York City area. And this really includes like the 5 boroughs, Long Island, Westchester, and Northern New Jersey. You should have at least 51% of ownership in your firm. We're asking actually the owners of the firms to be the participants in the programs. And if you're not the owner, then at least a partner or someone very kind of high level in the firm. So that's really, really important. But 51% of the firm has to be owned by a person of color. We're asking that you're certified as an MWBE or MBE by New York City or New Jersey or the municipality that you're in. This is preferred. I want to just make explicitly known that this is not required. So you do not have to be a certified MBE to participate. We want to make sure, however, that you have at least 5 years of experience as a real estate developer. And what that kind of rolls into is we want to see that you've at least developed 50 units of housing or about 15,000 square feet of commercial space. Now, if you're somewhere there, but you're not close, I advise you to still apply for the program. Again, we have a very competitive slate, but we encourage all applicants to join in because your application may be picked. We're opening it up to a bigger cohort of folk this year. Finally, you should have some experience with employees. Now, we also ask that your employee number is 50 employees or less. And then we want to make sure that you have at least 1 active real estate project in your pipeline. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean that your deal is closed. It doesn't mean that you're at construction. You don't have to be if you are great, but you should have a pipeline of something that you're actively working on. You might be in the pre-development phase, of your project. We want that to be submitted as your part of your application. I encourage all applicants to add as much information as you can in your application. This is important because we will be reviewing it, and we are reviewing these applications competitively. Next slide, please. So what are we deep diving in? As I mentioned, we are having different courses, different kind of classes happening or sessions. I will tell you these sessions are more kind of structured in a networking way and informational, okay? So we meet twice a week for the 6-week period over the summer, and only for 2 hours. That's something that we shortened from the original cohort after hearing from our developers what their needs were. And so we're gonna be doing a quick intro to the market, talking about your projects, your deals that are in your pipeline, and prepping you for your pitch for the Shark Tank-like competition at the end of that 6 weeks. We're gonna do a deep dive into, just structuring your business, that back office pieces. How can you scale from a smaller firm to a larger firm, getting on some of these bigger deals like JFK redevelopment, getting on some of these bigger deals like, all of the humongous development that's happening throughout New York City, New York State, and even throughout the tri-state area. How do you make sure your back office is tight enough so you're participating in those things? We're going to talk about public and private projects and how to do everything from your pro formas to the RFP process and scaling your business. We're going to deep dive into structuring the deal and show pieces that people don't usually like to talk about, like your debt stack, and what the financing entities are looking for, and really kind of deep diving into that. We're going to get into project financing, the different applications going on and looking at the pipeline coming from LISC. We're going to speak to people in the market doing business about avoiding project landmines and then building relationships within the market. I will tell you this, the folk who come on this call and are sharing information are active participants in the market. They are doing deals. They have been in this space for a long time, and they are here to pour their information and insight in you in a way that sometimes it's tough to get as a developer in the market. So we're looking for developers that have scale, have been doing business, but are looking to take their business up to the next level. That is a perfect fit for this program. Next slide. So I'm going to give you a quick timeline on dates, and then from there, we're going to get into the Q&A section. So we had released the applications May 6th of 2022. And, today is the 18th where we're having our virtual information session. Again, I encourage you to ask as many questions as you can. Diana will soon be on sharing these questions and we will provide answers to them. May 25th is when our applications are closing. That is an important date to lock down, May 25th. Because after the applications close, we will unfortunately no longer accept applications from the market. By June 1st, you will receive a letter if you have been accepted into the cohort. And our first day of cohort class is June 14th. Now, we will again be having sessions every Tuesday and Thursday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And nothing on the 4th of July weekend. We know it's summertime, people got to travel and have fun with their families. But we will have sessions twice a week for that 6-week period. And we will also have some in-person networking sessions. So there's 3 days in which we're having events in partnership with a variety of very great companies throughout the market. You will be able to be in their spaces, in their office, meet with their people, and really network with both members from our last cohort and participants from the market, both on the private side and government side. And of course, LISC representatives. So finally, you're going to have an ability to get coaching. You can schedule your coaching in partnership with your coach. We ask that you receive at least 4 hours of coaching over this period of the programming. And then August 3rd is our last day. We will have an in-person Shark Tank-like investor pitch competition and a conference. Last year, we did it virtually, and it was exciting, to say the least. And so we're going to be back here again for cohort 2 and do this pitch competition again. And this time we'll be live in person. Last year was hot. It was busy, it was exciting, and we had a lot of great matches. And so we are sure that we will have that this next cohort coming up. Next slide. So now, the time that everyone has been waiting for. I hope you've asked your questions. The good thing about Zoom is that you all can see me right now. I can't see anyone. So sometimes, you're in a room and you're like afraid to raise your hand. This is not that time. Type in your question. I hope you've been introducing yourselves, and we will go ahead and answer any questions. So Diana, if you want to read the questions off, or I can read them off. And
sure.
Go ahead.
All right, question number 1. What has been revealed through the first cohort that you feel is critical to include in future cohorts?
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for that question. That question came from Melvin Turner. I'll go ahead and tap into it, and then Monica, I'll throw it over to you in case there's anything I missed. I think the most critical thing that we learned from the first cohort is that folk want to network more than anything else, right? Developers want to do deals. And one of the best ways to get to that end goal is by having really strong relationships and networking. So one of the things that we've done differently in this cohort is that we have increased the opportunities to network both in person and throughout our weekly sessions in a really, really big way. So I would say networking is one of the big takeaways. I think even networking internally with cohort participants, when we finished the cohort, people were already trying to do deals with each other. And they were like, we need a platform where all the cohort members can chat with each other and really get our deals and things going quickly. So that was another takeaway, and both of those things are being integrated. Monica, I'll throw it over to you if there's anything you think that I missed or might be also important to this conversation.
I think one of the other things that I would add to that includes, some of the topics that were in the modules, like structuring the deal. People really got a lot out of the time they spent with their coaches and just having that, one-on-one time to talk about projects in their deal and get that real-time support that's needed throughout the duration of the program, in addition to helping prepare them for the pitch style contest that everyone looks forward to. And so for us, I think, what's always critical, is the learning and assessments that we conducted after the first cohort, which we have incorporated into cohort 2, some of which Francilia briefly mentioned, and then I just mentioned too, things that we are going to continue, and some things that, we found that probably were not as helpful. And so, talking about dynamic program, that's what cohort 2, will be. We're looking forward to it, but, it's critical for us to listen, to learn to the participants as we move forward and continue to build and make the program better every single time with each cohort, because they all bring unique experiences to the program. So learning from one another, sharing best practices, was critical in cohort 1. And so continue to support and create platforms for engagement is also critical to the future cohorts.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Diana, next question, please.
Yes, next question. Have any of the city agencies participated in any phase of the cohort, such as HPD, HDC, etc.?
So excellent question. The answer is yes, they have. They want to continue to. They have been, they've come in the last phase, initial phase, providing information about how to work with their agencies. And we're looking to do even more of that in this next round. So the answer is yes. I mean, we've had people from the HPD, to SVS, looking at, how can you get your certification? So the answer is yes to that. Monica, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
No, I mean, that sums it up. They were very engaged. I mean, that was one of the things that we were really focused on. Again, networking and doing introductions. So not only did HPD and HCR and the government agencies, the state and the city, participate in the modules, in the presentations, but they were definitely, involved, and we're still having, conversations with them, as we move along on the project. And so they're definitely one of our supporters and partners for our Developers of Color training program.
To that point, to even Empire State Development. So I'll tell you, agencies play in different roles, right? Some agencies really have a lot of capital that they're looking to scale into, and then agencies have projects. So even agencies like an ESD, who's not necessarily coming with some of these big development projects, but they're coming with all types of capital, participated in the last cohort and are looking to do so moving forward. So I'll go into the next question, Diana, please.
With businesses where an emergency arises, if you miss one of the sessions, is there an opportunity for makeup?
The answer to that is yes, there will be. I think the good thing about this is, so one, we do have a strict attendance policy. We want people to, show up and be there. We do understand, one, it's summertime, and there might be things that come up. And so we will be, having a kind of database where you can collect all the information, so you can review, the information after a session, and then provide the feedback that's also required after each session. So the answer is yes, you will have an opportunity to make up. We're encouraging you not to miss a certain number of sessions, because again, we're only together for a very short 6 weeks, for 2 hours, technically 4 hours a week. And so it's so important that everyone stays looped in. That's like a very important piece of our criteria. So the answer is yes. And we'll go ahead and throw it over to the next question, please.
Perfect. I have a project in the pipeline. It is my first development project, but I have experience in renovations. I want to scale my business. Would my business be considered? If not, what resource would you suggest?
So I think that I guess I have a few questions that are for a situation like this. One, have you been in business for 5 years or more? And if the answer is no to that, then I would say, go ahead and submit the application, because there might be some other nuances that you can't tell me throughout just this little blurb that you just sent, right? Go ahead and submit your application and we'll take a look at it. But I will say that we have certain requirements to ensure that the mix of folk are ready to do, the next step in certain deals and networks. So I will say this, those points of requirements that requested, especially 5 years, is very important, but I will not tell you not to submit. Go ahead and submit, because you never know what space we may end up having. You never know if, we have a certain pot of applicants number that we're trying to hit for this cohort. It's actually double the size of last year. I heard somebody say they weren't accepted last cohort, and they're wondering, I'll talk about that in a second, but you never know if we have additional opportunity and we can support your business. Monica, did you want to opine or add anything further to that?
No, I would agree with you. I think individuals, after reviewing the eligibility requirements and you think that you fall short, in one area, not too many areas, I also recommend, submit the application. We do a very thorough job reviewing them and vetting them. We, may contact folks for additional information if we need clarity around the applications. But if you're uncertain, I share with people to please go ahead, and submit an application. And one of the things that we are committing to do this round, and apologies that this was not done for cohort 1, is our inaugural pilot. And again, I talked briefly about learning from cohort 1 and as part of our evaluation and assessment process. If you are not selected, we will definitely share with the developer reasons why their application was not selected, because I think that information was important. If you submitted an application for cohort 1, and you were not selected, if things have changed, if you automatically identified reasons why you fell short in some of the eligibility requirements, again, submit the applications. I just put my contact information in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me, send me an email, and I will get back to you. But we definitely will share with the applicants reasons why their application, was not selected, because there may be areas for improvement, and you can gear up and plan for cohort 3, which I just put in the Q&A response. We are planning to host cohort 3 in the fall of 2022. And so again, if you have questions, concerns, by all means, reach out to us at LISC New York City. Next question.
How were coaches identified or matched to the cohort members?
Excellent. I think to the initial question that was earlier, which was like, what other best practices did we learn from round 1? I think this question actually speaks to another thing that we've learned and kind of switched up differently this year. And it answers 2 of the questions: who are the coaches and how are coaches matched to members? So in our first cohort in round 1, we, had a bulk of coaches that we were working with. These people were serious, developers in the market. Serious, agencies that have been doing business for years. And so they came on board to coach our participants, and they were amazing. However, I do think that where we learned was that, certain people were not necessarily matched to folk who were doing the type of work they wanted to do. So this year, as a best practice, what we're doing a little differently is that we are inviting the coaches in, and after the application process is when we're going to say who's connected to who. So the reason why I keep insisting that you all put a lot of details into your application is because of the fact that the more details we have, the better we can match you with a coach that makes sense to the type of work that you're doing, right? So if you're somebody who builds a lot in the affordable housing space, we want to match you with someone who does a lot of work in the affordable housing space. If you're somebody who works a lot in the market-based housing space, we want to, again, match you to someone who does a lot of work there, who has scaled their company there. If you're someone who's very interested in scale, right, throughout the program, you're like, you know, I get business really easily, I want to scale. I want to match you with someone who understands scaling a business. So hopefully that helps answer the question. We're taking a little more deep dive this round to make sure that the matches properly fit the developers who are participating in the cohorts. Next question.
I just have a brief announcement. I noticed that some of you are putting your questions in the chat. If you can please put them in the Q&A so, you know, we can make sure that we get to them. I'm literally going through here trying to answer some of the questions in the chat, but please, you know, put your questions in the Q&A so that we can see them and get to all of them. Next question.
Thank you, Monica. What % of projects from the first cohort were successfully completed?
Oh, excellent question. I'll tell you this. If you're a developer, one thing you understand is that projects will no way be completed in a month. The first cohort actually closed out, January of this year. Correct, Monica? Is that, I'm trying to, yeah. January, end of January, sometime this year is when that cohort completed. What I think a better question is, how many people were successfully connected to fiscal partners? And of our 12 participants, 10 of them were. Now, how many people's deals have been effectively funded and are their deals closed? That's a longer term conversation, right? Because if you're in a development process, even if you came to us when you were at a pre-construction phase in January and finish out the January cohort, we're in March. So we're about, 4 months or so, we're in May, I'm sorry, we're about 4 months later, your deal would no way be done. Your financing stack may also probably not be done. So I think in time we'll have more answers to that, how many folk actually have deals closed. I will tell you, we are tracking this, and we're even in this cohort looking to reconnect with our cohort 1 members to ensure that this information is tracked and we can help them with hiccups when deals are kind of stuck. I'll tell you, just the other day, we had an event with where we invited cohort 1 members. So the relationship continues. We're becoming family after this thing, right? And one of the members came to me and said, hey, look, I'm having difficulty with my pipeline with one of these agencies. And I said, at minimum, let's have a conversation and let's see if maybe there's something we can do to help support that. So I think that we will continue to see who closes their deals, and that's something we'll know when the next year probably we'll start really having data pour out on that. But I'll throw it over to you, Monica, if there's any point that I missed in that conversation.
No, I think that was a pretty accurate, summary regarding projects. So, one of the things that's important and critical to the success of this program in its entirety is to, remain engaged, communicate with the participants, with the developers in their projects. I mean, there were, I would probably say over, $20 million or more that they received just, from cohort 1, culmination of all of the folks in their projects who participated, the developers that they, got from, our Developers of Color program. One of the benefits, again, is to, track successes. And so folks are moving along with their projects. So we're looking forward to, review and keep, updated where folks are as the projects, come to fruition.
Excellent.
All right.
Yeah. Go ahead, Diana.
Next question. If your firm is new, but each member of the firm collectively meet the eligibility requirements, would our application be considered?
Monica, I'll throw that over to you.
So if your firm is new, but each member of the firm collectively meet the eligibility. So how we our process the applications, it's by it can be an individual / or a firm. And so it sounds like what you're saying, individually you meet the requirements, but collectively the firm has less than 5 years in existence if it's new. I would say, we would have to think about that because, and this is your question, Jonathan Smith, if the plan is that you guys are submitting an application on behalf of the new firm, just based on the eligibility, they would not meet the 5-year eligibility requirement. So, we can have, a brief offline conversation about that to get more information, but just based on the eligibility as it exists today, if the firm submitted the application, they would fall short under that eligibility requirement. And so I won't say anything further regarding that other than we're happy to have a conversation to discuss that further.
Excellent. Next question, please, Diana.
It looks like we addressed everything. Oh, here they come. There's some more coming. I activated my development company in January 2022. However, in my prior employment with a not-for-profit, I provided leadership and directed the housing development efforts, resulting in new construction for more than 300 units. I'm not sure if he's asking, would he be considered eligible for this?
Again, with a situation like that, I think everyone has their unique situation. And I'll tell you, as Monica mentioned, we take a lot of time to review these applications, to make sure we can provide support. Submit your application. One of the things that we're going to do this year, because again, a request from last session is to let folk know, a quick blurb on like, we were not able to put you in this cohort, reason why. And I think that submit your application, give us all you can about what you are and what you're doing. You may be able to fit certain criterias. And if you fit enough of them, you may be a prospective candidate. But I want to, again, say that we want to make sure in this initiative, we can scale people to their next level. That's so important that we're able to scale developers to their next level. So the reason why we are, really saying that there's certain requirements we want folks to hit is because we've seen that these requirements are usually folk who are ready to scale. Now, there might be different and unique situations, and you may be that. So submit your application, get it to us before the 25th. We will deep dive review. And I will say if there's any other areas we can support, we'll try to do that too. So.
I think that's all the questions.
Did we answer the question about the coaches?
Yes, we did. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We did that one. What percent if you're firm? Thank you. So let's just scan through the chat. I see
one more thing. I said that I know the webinar is being recorded. However, can you share the dates of the sessions for this upcoming cohort so that we can begin planning our schedule? Yes. If you could do me a favor, Taylor, and just go back to that slide, one slide back. All right, right there. Here's the timeline. We're putting back up the timeline. The dates of the cohort are already scheduled. And so here they are. If you want to screenshot this page, please feel free. These dates are stamped in, they are locked down, locked in. And so you can be sure we wanted to do that, especially because we know it's summertime. We want to make sure everything, we could plan around it. Good thing, most of everything is virtual. So we could be in the Bahamas together, and so lock down these dates. They're here for you if you would like to schedule in advance. Are there any revenue requirements to enroll in the program? And the answer to that is no. We understand as a developer, you might have 3 deals in your pipeline right now, but they're in your pipeline and there might be at different phases of construction and you're not seeing revenue on them. So there's no revenue requirement for this project. Let's see who else. Any other questions? This is your time now. And I saw a question about not being in the initial cohort. Yes, Wayne, if you would like to send us an email, we can have a conversation of ways that you can probably better increase your application from what you submitted last year. So again, Diana will go ahead and drop her email here also, Diana Hillier, and you can reach out to her, you can reach out to Monica, you can reach out to myself, and if we can support you in that way, we can, if you submitted last year and weren't accepted. I will tell you this, we have doubled the cohort side because there was such an aggressive interest last year. And so there will be more room this year. And so again, we ask, the one thing that you can do is submit your application so you could be in the ranks. But if you don't, and we don't have it, we close it out on the 25th. So please, right after this call today, it's a really quick submission, by the way. Max, you're probably spending 10 minutes in it, and that's max. And so it's a quick submission, and we will get it. All right, let's see. Anybody else? All
Do
right.
we want to show a video, Francilia? I know we mentioned earlier.
Yes, if you can go ahead, Taylor, while Taylor is pulling it up through the PowerPoint, Taylor, you can drop this one and work on pulling it up for us. So while Taylor is working on pulling up the quick video that we will share, it's just a little testimonial, and we can end with that testimonial. So I will tell you this, we have had some really great success stories, and you will hear a testimonial in a second from a developer who participated in this initiative, not only got capital and financing, right after completing it, but was also received the most, 12 out of 12 from the Sharps as it pertains to committing to his deals. And this developer has been on the rise, on the move, and their company, they're out of Jamaica, Queens, their company has continued to scale with the support of LISC. Beyond just scaling on their projects that they came to this project with, they have gotten a lot of media participation, everything from some of the work that we've been doing as a LISC partner. LISC has also funded this developer, and you have seen their business scale up in a very dynamic way. So we're going to go ahead and hear from them and hear what they got to say. You can press play on the video. And you know what I will do in order to support, because we're not hearing your sound. Monica, if you have a few words to say, I'll go ahead and put it up on the video, and so you can hear it from my end. Monica, if you have
Okay, here it is.
Okay, perfect.
Our advancing real estate model. So I'll just say a few words while we're preparing the video. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. As I mentioned earlier, if you have questions, please send an email, a phone call regarding any questions or concerns that you have. I'm actually noticing a few more questions in the chat.
Yeah, they're coming in.
Hamath Baduke, can we go to him live so we can hear his questions? And while we're doing that, Jonathan Smith, can joint ventures apply? Yes, you can apply at the time of the application. One of the things we'd like to avoid is we can't have joint ventures happen during the program, like you enter as one firm and then things happen and then you change your name and create a new entity during the program. Hamath, what is the application process about? Can you please send me a link? So yes, we will put the link right to our website where it will take you directly to the application and you can apply. So we'll put that in the chat. I am a MBE certified and DB certified with New Jersey. Is that the application you're talking about? So again, I will put in the chat the link to the application so you can apply again. I put my contact information in the chat. Send an email, more than happy to answer your questions. Again, what I've been saying to folks, you know, if you're concerned, you're not sure as to whether or not, you know, you check all the boxes, you know, it's okay. Submit your application. We're going to review them all very, very thoroughly. If additional clarity is needed, we will definitely follow up, you know, with you all. As Francilia mentioned earlier, our plan is to double the size of the cohort. Cohort 1 consisted of 12. We're planning for 24, just due to, you know, the overwhelming responses and applications that we received for cohort 1. So we are super duper excited to work with you and in this next cohort. And so I will go to the video.
When we saw the foreclosure crisis hit our community of Southeast Jamaica, Queens, and being the fact that we're from the community and, you know, we have when we saw the foreclosure crisis hit our community of Southeast Jamaica, Queens, and being the fact that we're from the community and, you know, we have a lot of ties in the neighborhood, we didn't want to see our community go through a lot of the distress that was taking place across the city. We're connected to the LISC NYC Developers of Training program because they provided us with a pre-development loan for our first ground-up new construction project located in the Melrose section of the Bronx.
We were applying for a lot of government money, a lot of city money, and of course COVID happened, all the agencies shut down, and it kind of pushed us back. I want to say like maybe 2 years of where we would have been today.
I think there's a great window of opportunity to support Black entrepreneurs, Black developers that hasn't been out there in years. Take yourself to the next level by going out there and taking the risk and believing in yourself and using LISC as an organization, participating in the LISC Developers of Color training program to enhance your skills and fill in the gaps. You know what you know and you know what you don't know. The LISC Developers of Training program can help you fill those gaps so that you know what you need to know in order to move forward and build a thriving business, especially during these very great opportunistic times to build businesses for Black communities.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you all for that. Now, I think we have, you know, heard a testimonial. We've answered a whole lot of questions. We've had over 50 plus people on this call. We hope that everybody registered. And we are giving you all our email addresses, okay? So in the chat, you've already had dropped the link for where you can go and find the application. You have had Diana's email address in there. I'm gonna drop my email address in there. Monica's email address in here. You have all the ways to connect with us. I will tell you, connect with us sooner than later because this application is due on the 25th. And we want to have the time to actually respond to you. So without further questions, I think that we can close out. We want to thank you on behalf of the R. Wilkins Consultants team, on behalf of the LISC team, on behalf of all the past cohort members, and on behalf of you all that has spent the last hour with us. Thank you so much for joining in this conversation. Remember to submit your application by Wednesday, May 25th. The applications close at midnight. Remember that we're announcing participants on June 1st. Remember that our cohorts are 10 to 12, 2 days a week over the summer. And beyond our session dates, which we shared earlier, we have some in-person networking dates and that are also listed here. You can send any questions to any of the emails we shared today or to LISC Developers of Color at rwilkinsconsultants.com and NYC Developers of Color at LISC.org. Monica, do you have any closing words?
Again, I just want to thank all of you for joining us this afternoon. I hope this information session has been helpful. We hope that you are in the process of submitting an application if you haven't done so already. Well, I know we've received some plethora of applications to date, and so we're super duper excited about that. So again, on behalf of LISC New York City and the team here, I want to thank Taylor and Diane for their support for this session. And, you know, we're looking forward to reviewing your applications. Again, reach out to us if you have questions or concerns before the application process closes, which is a week from today at 11:59 p.m. So don't send us an email at 9 o'clock because you probably will not receive a response. But again, thank you for joining us, and we're excited to be able to offer, you know, this program here at LISC New York City. And enjoy the rest of your day. We will end this information session.
All right. Excellent, excellent. Enjoy your rest of the day, everyone.